Hello and welcome to the mill. I am your host, Dusty Crane. It feels really good to be back. I don't know why last week's episode doesn't feel like a real episode, probably because I shot it with my phone over the course of vacation, but it's weird. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't remember where to point for the graphics, and anyway, let's just get right to it. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Stonemaier Games blog yet, Jamie went ahead and put up a top 23 things that he is grateful for this Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a U.S. holiday in which we celebrate all the things that we're thankful for and then attack people in retail stores for deals for Christmas. It's really strange, but yeah, anyway, Jamie went ahead and put together a really cool blog post that just lists all the things that Stonemaier Games is thankful for this holiday season, and we made 10. The mill made 10, so Jamie wrote something really nice, and that was cool. But check it out. See the stuff that he's posted up there. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't even necessarily think of in terms of, you know, fulfillment partners and people who actually send out those replacement parts that Stonemaier is gets so much good publicity from, or so much good talk on the customer service. There's a team behind them and they deserve the thanks. So go ahead and check that out. It's a good read. All right, the second thing is, I mentioned Thanksgiving. Today is Saturday. We have finished Thanksgiving. We have finished Black Friday. And yeah, there are a lot of well-worn tropes around Thanksgiving in the U.S. It is a holiday in which we bring all of our family and extended family together that we hate, apparently, and we suffer through a meal with the know-it-all uncle who is going to talk about every thing that's not socially polite to talk about. He's going to talk about religion and politics and money, and these are all the things that for some reason has become a trope and has become a part of it. And then there is the aspect where, you know, retail employees have to show up to work. They leave their meal with their family that they hate, and they go to work a job that they hate with a bunch of people that are willing to curb stomp you for a deal on $60 off on a UHD TV. It is a bizarre holiday if you only go by the tropes. Now, I don't have that issue. I love my family. I have great in-laws. I always look forward to the holidays. It is, you know, it's just one of those things that I look forward to the end of the year. It's like we have a lot of birthdays at the end of the year. We have a lot of holidays. And so for me, it's great. But for some people, it's stressful. It is enough to make you just totally unable to people, right? And so you go and you do your meal, and you either spend all day preparing it, or you just walk in and eat it. Whatever the deal is, you know, you have this stressful meal supposedly, and then you have this stressful time where you go out shopping immediately afterwards or the next day, and you're fighting with crowds. And even if you have wonderful holidays and you partake in Black Friday, it's enough to just kind of get you ready to have some quiet and some alone time. And while games are a fantastic hobby, the idea of having 4 or 5 of your friends over to play a game just sounds like more than you want to tackle at the moment. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about Stonemaier games that solo. Now, soloing is something that Stonemaier has had set as a priority all along from very early on. Viticulture has Automa. Scythe has Automa. Let's see here, I got a list. Charterstone, Between Two Cities, My Little Scythe. You know, if the fact that Morton from Team Automa is creating the expansion for Euphoria, then we have to imagine that Euphoria is going to be getting an Automa as well. And we know that Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, if there's an expansion, that will likely feature Automa. Between Two Cities, which is what it's kind of loosely based on, has a Automa, and it has a 2-player variant. So even these very social games have solo player options. And so I thought I would just kind of run through them and kind of just run through what that card looks like and kind of what the idea is, and discuss what I think, for me, is the best solo experience. Now, this is highly subjective, and what I think of as being number one, you may pull your hair out, disagree, and what I think of as probably not a great solo experience, maybe the only one that you've had that you love. And so please pardon me, but feel free to leave a comment in the comments and let me know why I'm wrong. Maybe you can change my mind. We'll see. All right, let's get into it. So I got a stack of Automa cards in my hand, and just to kind of run through, so I had mentioned that Between Two Cities had a Automa, and they do. You use the deck if you're playing a solo game. The two-player variant doesn't require it, but how this works is you have two Automa that you play with, and you're working with both Automa, and the Automa are working together. And you have a card that talks about, it's split in half, and it says the player shared card is going to take this action, and it's going to have these priorities. And then the Automa City that they're working together, that will have those activities, and it'll be what they work on together. And so you're running two Automa. It is a little bit different running each one. I've not actually run this one solo, so it may be more intuitive than it looks just by looking at the card, and I'll go ahead and throw one up here digitally too so that you can check that out. But the card itself looks like there's a lot going on, but I know that it could just be like a prioritization thing. If you can't do this, do this, do this, do this, and it's really no big deal at all. So that's the first one that I have listed for discussion, was Between Two Cities, and you actually can play Capitals solo as well, the expansion. One of the things I did for you guys earlier was how to solo My Little Scythe, and that's what their Automa card looks like. And the Automa card itself is broken into things like gain pies, movement, or seek, what gems or what quests to put on the board. I think the My Little Scythe Automa, if you haven't seen that video, I concluded that it's really easy to run. I was a playtester on the game. My kids were playtesters on the game for the Automa side, and I went ahead and just said, all right, here's the rules, here's how it goes. Run through it, see if you can do it, and they were able to without problem. It ran really well. So I think the fact that even kids who are, and my kids play games with me, but they're not super into it. So, I have, my son will play Scythe, the girls won't play Scythe. So it's not like, you hear the kids that are playing these heavy Euros at age 5 and stuff like that. That's not the case in my house. But they were still able to run the Automa pretty well. So My Little Scythe is a good one. The card, like I said, is broken into gain pies, movement, seeking, and what you would spend in a pie battle. Okay, the next Automa that I wanted to talk about is another one that I have not yet personally played myself, and that is the Charterstone Automa. The Charterstone Automa card looks a little bit like this, and in this case you're taking the action that's in the middle of the card. In this case we're rolling the Charterstone dice to decide where we're placing our Automa. The top left-hand corner of the card actually shows some things you're going to gain. So in this case, on this card, we're going to gain, the Automa is going to gain 2 victory points. They are going to open a crate, I believe, and move that the tracker that indicates the end of the, I think it's the glory tracker, that moves the tracker toward the end of the game. Sometimes it triggers income and stuff like that. And then in the bottom corner of the card, there's a little Happy King, Mad King icon, and that just serves as kind of an end game prompt where if your Automa is participating in deciding whether you're going to choose the option that makes the the king happy or the king sad. So that's just its vote. This is another one where I think the Automa is really sharply done. This one seems to be a little more clear in terms of what actions you're taking, what you are going to do, as well as kind of takes out some of the moving pieces that a human player might have to make decisions on, such as paying for resources, gathering, wood or pumpkins or whatever, and it takes that out of it while still providing a pretty good challenge. So Charterstone is another one that has an Automa that, if you so chose, you could play solo. The next one is Viticulture. And Viticulture, I think this Automa is another one like My Little Scythe that is just really easy to follow. It's color-coded. You can see on this card we have yellow and red and blue, and there's actually a little flag over the yellow and the red that says T, and that means if you're playing with Tuscany, these are actions you would take. Otherwise, if you are playing with just base Viticulture Essential Edition, you would not use those particular options when you're playing. Now, I really like this because even if you aren't really well versed in running an Automa, like Scythe's Automa, I'll get to that one next. Even if you're not really well versed, you can look at the card and know exactly what to do. So you're placing a worker on buy and sell one field, easy. You're harvesting one field. You're building a structure or giving a tour. And another thing it does is it breaks it down into seasons. In with Tuscany, you have all the seasons. You have spring, summer, fall, winter, and it runs it in order. It's really easy to follow. So I do like the Viticulture Automa quite a bit, and I think it's pretty easy to follow. Scythe is an Automa that, if I'm being honest, I have the most difficulty wrapping my head around. Now, it's not that I'm not saying that it's difficult. I'm saying there are a lot of rules in place for movement, which is very important because Scythe is, if you're trying to think of automating Scythe, what a tremendous effort that Team Automa must have went through wrapping their brain about how do we move this in a way that makes sense. And I know there's people out there that can manipulate, they know exactly how the Automa is going to react, so they work around it, or if they're playing with more than one Automa, they pit them against each other. It is another one-player thing that, the card is broken down into a move action. So this is where the Automa is going to move. The second piece is this is what the Automa is going to gain. And the third piece is if there is an enlist action. And then if there's a star in the middle, you'll move the star along the Automa progress track so you know how soon it gains Riverwalk. There's also a piece on the side here that indicates, if you end up in battle with an Automa, this is how many combat power it's going to use, or this is how many combat cards it's going to use, and if it leaves any goods behind. And then what I think was kind of above and beyond, that was really impressive to me, is there is a aggressive side. So once the Automa reaches a certain level there, it gets meaner, it gets more cutthroat, and it goes after you. There's more movement actions, it gains more stuff, and so I just think that's really well done. I think the fact that Stonemaier has made Automa and solo play a focus and has used Morton and Team Automa to the degree they have really speaks well of just the idea that the solo play is very important to Stonemaier Games and their designs. And I appreciate that because I'm a gamer that my game group is my kids. I've said it before, and they're getting older, they have their own lives, and they're getting busier too as they grow with homework and after school activities. And so I don't always have somebody to play a game with, and maybe I feel like playing a game. So having that solo component is excellent. So now to the part that I was probably the most worried about, and that is the part where I start discussing which Automa is the best. Again, just my opinion. Immediately, I am going to rule out Between Two Cities Automa, and that is largely because Between Two Cities to me kind of feels, I don't want to say party game, because I think there is a negative connotation somewhat. I think some people are just like, oh, it's just a party game, they dismiss it. I think Between Two Cities is a great game that I think part of the enjoyable aspect of it is the fact that you are working together with another human. So I am going to rule that one out just because that's not how I want to play that game. I think then it probably should come as no surprise that my number 2 game that I would rule out would be Charterstone. Now, Charterstone, the automa looks really easy to run. It kind of checks all those boxes in terms of what I like my automa to do and how easy it is to run. But for me, I think a legacy game is... I think legacy to me has a stronger meaning than maybe just a game I'm making board game changes to. The word itself means something to me. It's something I think about in terms of reputation, or in terms of things that I want people to remember about me and that kind of thing. So when I think of legacy and I think of my copy of Charterstone, what has driven me to play game after game after game is when we're done, this board represents time that my children and I have spent. It marks decisions we made along the way in terms of how we've responded to guideposts. And, I have every intention after the fact of playing it is probably trying to create some kind of shadow box. I don't know, but for that reason, legacy games to me strike me as something that you want to do with a group of people over a period of time, and that end game result be something that's special in a way that maybe just playing myself with an automated character or two doesn't quite do. So for that reason, I'm going to put Charterstone aside, despite the fact that I think the automa looks right up my alley. The next one I am going to rule out, despite having played a lot, is Scythe. And the reason for that is just because I mentioned, I think without Sidekick, the app that Tim Cherna did and is actively updating and working with that he developed, without that, I think I would probably have played less solo just due to the complexity of the movement rules. And again, it's not that they're hard to follow, because there's so many people that play Scythe solo without Sidekick, and they even prefer, like, they have multiple automa decks, and so it's not necessarily that it is complicated. I know, like, once, and I've played with just the deck a few times, I know once you get it, you get it. It's just taking the time to learn those rules. Sidekick has been really beneficial to me, and so just I think due to that, I think the Scythe automa is probably the most impressive to me, but I'm going to go ahead and put that one aside and say that if I have to choose a solo game and I don't have Sidekick present, I'm probably not playing Scythe out of the Stonemaier games. That brings us down to 2. That brings us down to My Little Scythe and Viticulture. And I kind of did a video for you on how to solo My Little Scythe, so maybe that gives you some indication. But it doesn't. I was burying the lead. I love My Little Scythe solo. I think it is very easy to play. I think it's very easy to understand. Like I had mentioned that my kids ran it. It's great solo, so it definitely deserves that top 2 spot for me. I really do enjoy it for all the reasons that I mentioned in that video and all the reasons I've already mentioned it. It's super easy to run. So My Little Scythe goes to second place, which is, really all of these are great in terms of how they run. I think the top 3 especially, I have a lot of good feelings for, but I'm going to go ahead and give my top to Viticulture. Viticulture is super easy to run solo, as I mentioned, and I like the theme. I didn't think I would like the theme when I bought it. I kind of, got into Scythe and thought that I'd give something else, Stonemaier, a shot, since I really liked that so much. And so even though winemaking sounded like kind of a dry theme to me, I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. But the theme is so strong that I always enjoy Viticulture when I bring it to the table. And there is a fantastic fan-made solo campaign that we've talked about before on the show, and this was made by Stephen St. James, and it is, it's a campaign that you play through 9 seasons of the game, unless I think you play hardcore. I think you play through it a few times, but there's very easy, there's normal, there's all these different games you play with all these different rules that differ per game. I just think there's so much variety between what we have officially produced and what is made by the fan community, which again that's certainly true of Scythe, but I think just for me personally, my number one soloable Stonemaier game is Viticulture. I really like Viticulture solo. So that's it. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me how great Scythe solo is. Tell me, actually, I'd love if you've played Between Two Cities solo. I would love to hear if it's significantly easier than maybe all the symbology along the bottom of the card would indicate. Or, geez, it's kind of embarrassing to think about now, but that could literally just be card art for all I know. I really didn't look into it too deep before I began this. What's great solo? Which Stonemaier game do you enjoy solo the best? Another thing that sprung to mind is when you play solo, do you record those results in on BGG or in an app or something like that keeps track of those points? And do you just play against yourself, or do you have any friends that also play solo and you record scores and play up against high scores? I'd be interested to hear. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. And if you are one of the people celebrating or celebrated Thanksgiving, I hope it was fantastic. If you went out into the craziness that is Black Friday, I hope you got some great deals and that you were not curb stomped for a nice TV. And I certainly hope you didn't curb stomp anyone for a nice TV. And if you are not one of those people that partake in Thanksgiving and you just relate to the fact that sometimes you just need to play a game alone, I hope you had a good week as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again. Thanks. Bye.